Hi again, everybody. I'm Jamie Allison, and this is the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is the destination for high performers. We talk to people from different genres, different niches, people just doing really cool things in their space. So we talk to CEOs, we talk to athletes, we talk to influencers, we talk to scientists, we talk to people that are just doing really cool things that we can take bits and pieces out of their journey and the things that they're doing and hopefully apply them to our own lives. And I know we have one of those guests today. We have some really cool stuff that you're going to be able to take away. Just before we jump into that, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that Epitome Sportswear has been a supporter of us. And if you haven't checked out their stuff, just know that they're very aligned with what we do here, where they look at things from a whole life success standpoint, in that obviously there's a real kind of athletic focus to some of their wear, but some of it is very connected to just getting out and doing things. And so their motto is live life fully, and that aligns really well with us. The other thing is that they do a lot to give back to the communities they serve. So they're working to impact the inequities in opportunity for girls and women in sport. And so for that reason, a portion of their profits also go to organizations and initiatives that support girls in sports. So definitely check them out. You can go to our Instagram profile and go through the bio there, or just go to epitome, EPITOME sportswear.com and check it out. And so today, really happy to have Jaclyn Cordeiro with us. She's actually a registered nurse, but she's also a personal transformation specialist coach, an influencer, a model, a writer, and a fitness competition athlete as well. So she has combined her healthcare education and fitness to do some really cool things. At the Natural Toronto Pro Qualifier recently, she placed first in both open and masters categories. So she's also, I know, just also been named an oxygen ambassador as well. So that's pretty cool as well. So first of all, lots of really neat things happening right now for you. But welcome and thanks for taking the time out to talk to us today.
Well, I am flattered that you asked me to come on. Of course, anything I can do to kind of raise awareness to a more positive vibe lately, because we've kind of crushed with this whole pandemic thing. So it's kind of nice to be able to celebrate some good, right?
Yeah, and that's what we try to do. I mean, a lot of real cool things have come out of some of these what's been happening too as well. So we try to focus a lot on that. And you, I mean, you're a good example of that. You went to University of Windsor for nursing, and obviously have that profession. But where did the desire come out to do some of these other things that are they're I think related, but at the same time quite different in what you do with them?
I'll be honest with you. I think ever since I was a young child, just whether it's playing outside sports with my brothers or, just with a neighborhood kid, what it was like to play all day long and come in when you have to just for dinner, that kind of thing. I've always been very enthralled and interested in anything physical, sports, the competitive aspect of it, the discipline it was a major thing for me. But my parents and my brothers exposed me to a lot of things that normally I feel like that I may not have been exposed to, just because for the simple reason that I just feel like I was always trying to keep up to them. Yeah. So whatever that meant, I did. And then so I kept that as a young girl, and then it just kind of morphed into my young adulthood. And I don't like being stagnant, and I don't like staying the same. I'm always trying to do something better or different, just to keep myself engaged and to, have that zest for life kind of thing. So yeah.
Well, and I know that you've also in the past talked about how fitness and good nutrition and those things have really they helped you personally when you were going through stressful things like university and stuff like that. Lots of people are listening that have gone through a lot of stress, like you were talking about. How did that help you? And is that something that you really kind of talk about with the people you coach and things like that as well?
Absolutely. I am a firm believer that anything that happens in life, positive or negative, will help you later on in life to be able to be prepared to handle things, right? So at a young age, my parents separated and got divorced, and that was a stressful time. So I channeled a lot of kind of what my emotions were into something physical, so that I was able to kind of feel like at least I had something to look forward to, and I was in control, and I had, I could put what I wanted into it, right? But as you get older, you realize that a lot of life experiences do help others and they can relate. And I think the best way really to describe just the connection is to be genuinely, authentically yourself. People just want to be able to break down barriers and they want to be able to relate, and then they want to be able to trust. And then I think when that happens with clients, magical things can happen. It's amazing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that people talk about right now is that kind of going through those experiences builds a resiliency. I guess that's also helping people now. I mean, you talked about that some of the things that you went through when you were younger, and also even being a nurse and dealing with some of the stuff that you do there, I'm sure does that. Is that something you learned? Is it something that's innate with you? Where did you get that to start with, and does it just come through experiences?
Well, and the thing is about me, and my mom always says, she's like, you always have like 5 pots going at the same time. Or if you don't, you need to try to find a pot because you get bored quickly. But when I graduated from nursing school, of course, what job do I pick? ER. Like, what new grad does that? You're white knuckles just to work for the first year of your life, and you're stressed out. And I had a child that wasn't even 1 year old, and you just try to balance all these things because you want to work hard at doing well at everything. And a lot of mothers, fathers for that matter, parents, we put so much stress on ourselves to be able to be perfect, especially when you start having a family. So you try to balance things, and sometimes you lose sight of some of those things and you forget to put into yourself. And when this whole self-care thing starts to deplete and then there's nothing left, I think that's when other things become imbalanced and you just kind of lose your way. Right. So it's life experience as a nurse. I actually took police foundations before I went into nursing because policing was probably my other go-to. But those types of interests in little events in your life or things you're exposed to all make for a better version of you later if you tap into that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and you mentioned there having to balance all of those things, especially at different points in your life. They change what those are, but
Sure,
you're a mom, you're a professional, and you also have all these other things. How do you try to balance some of that yourself?
Well, with my 2 daughters, they're 9 and 10. They're everything, right? Like anyone that has children or people that have people that they care about, they understand the value of nurturing it. So with the physical aspect of it, I always try to, engage with my daughters, participate. If we're doing food prep on Sunday, they come into the kitchen and I'm like, okay, here's the proper way to use a knife. This is a cutting, it's a learning experience, but I'm also exposing them to other things, nutrition, what's good, what's not, self-care, being mindful. So there's opportunities with everything I have to do that I can kind of integrate them into, if that makes sense. So working out in the morning, they know that that's my time. They'll come down sometimes when they wake up early and they'll be like, hey mom, here we go. And then, she'll try to demonstrate something that she feels comfortable doing. And it's awesome. So I take those moments and I try to incorporate them into my daily life, Of course, there's some things that they can't be involved in or participate in, but I certainly have those conversations with them. So I try to balance my children in my fitness industry and the other, things that you do together by just trying to get them involved.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really, really important part of my communication to them is that the good and the bad, it can't just be the good, they have to understand both sides of it. So that the hard work, the dedication, the eating right, the educating, always wanting to be a better version, all of those things matter, but that's a lot of work. And so they have to see that. They can't just see the trophy or the, hey girls, look, that kind of thing, because it's, I want to be able to make them the most realistic with, what their strategy is going to be to climb through life. So
and there's probably a lot of people that can connect well with what you're saying right now, because that integration piece in life is even more so right now, because so many people have been home for a long time, or there's just a very different way of handling, whether it's school or work or all of those things as well. And during that time, I know had kind of built out some online stuff and things like that I'm sure just became even that much more more important. Why don't you tell us a bit about that? But how was that to learn that at the same time as because it's different than anything you've done before, like in that,
Yeah,
I mean, I know the material is familiar, I'm sure, but building your own kind of online piece and more of an entrepreneurial chunk to it is difficult, I'm sure.
yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. It was probably the most extreme challenge I've ever been posed to with my
Yeah.
life, because you wake up, you're expected to go to school, then you graduate from university, and then you have a stable job, and you're secure, and you're secure, and you're secure. Leaving that into wanting to really do what I wanted to do, which was my passion in fitness, was a struggle for me to let kind of that go. But what I really didn't realize is that the way that I was handling and communicating and guiding my clients was exactly what nurses do with their patients. So it was like a collaboration of like, and I just felt like this is the best thing since sliced bread. Like I have the best of both worlds. So that's why I'm so focused on like the healthy approachable things. I don't know everything, but I do know what works for me. So, I'll extend that to others, right?
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I feel like it was a time when the pandemic first hit, and I always had clients that I would just, meet at the gym, or they go to the same gym. I'm like, come on, and I'll help you out, whatever. Because I was always busy working. So I never really made my fitness a full-time thing.
Yeah.
But when the pandemic hit, I had a lot of friends reaching out. They were spiraling. A lot of them became a little bit, I would say, depressed, lost focus of who they were. And I was like, wow, this can't be. And then I'm just like, okay, you know what? I'll send you a meal plan. I'll send you a training plan. And you follow that. And then every week we'll check in and we'll see how you're doing. Things you want to improve, things that you could do better, or things that you want to praise and celebrate. This kind of a conversation, and just unfolds very organically. And then before you know it, you get a connection with your client, and they're like, okay, I believe in you. And I believe in them, because people want to change. They want to know what's for the better. And if they feel good during the process, they're going to adapt to it, and they're going to take it long term. So that was it was just a couple people here and there. And then it got to the point where, Windsor, a small city,
Mm-hmm.
but things kind of spread like wildfire. And then I just started getting clients. So I'd get like challenge clients of 10. And then all of a sudden it would build up and build up. And now it's a full-time job being on check-ins. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the part I find the most successful, is the connection, because we've kind of lost that, right, in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's why it's so important to have those check-ins. I mean, you can give anybody a meal plan, you can give anybody a training plan, but sometimes it's good to educate, or to say, did you want to ask why I have this as a meal option? You know what I mean? Like that kind of a conversation where you don't really get. That's part of the nursing part, right? So it's yeah.
Well, and how much of it is just the community connection with some of those people as well? Because if you have a group of people, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of it is just something that had been missing for a while. Probably they find through something like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. People just want to connect. People just want to know that that you believe in them, because that can go a long way. I feel like that positive energy that you try to bring out of people, it's infectious, and then it just starts spreading like wildfire, like I said. And people gravitate to energy. They like that, that piece of like, hey, whatever they're doing or whatever they're on, I want it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been great, because I feel that especially because I'm a woman that was young, athletic, had 2 children in 2 years, competed, all these things, all these challenges. So I have experience. It's no BS. It's just, and I don't know everything, but I will always lend a hand and actually engage into, like, immerse myself into, how can we fix this, or how can we make this client better?
Yeah.
Like I literally take it as like it's my job, because I truly love it. And I think that's the difference, right?
Have you found, I mean, I know one thing that people find is you have, when you build your own stuff, you do things differently because of experiences that you've had, whether they're negative or positive. Are there things that you didn't enjoy with kind of your own connections in the fitness industry, or any of those things that you've changed since it's your own approach now?
Yeah, so with respect to plant-based, when I first started competing, it's bewildering to say the least. You're a
Yeah.
little fish in a giant ocean, and you're just like, okay, well, how do I find my way in there? I feel like Dory. You don't, yeah, you got a lot to learn. Um, anyway, so competing, I would do chicken, white chicken,
Yeah.
eggs, broccoli, the Rocky Balboa diet. Everybody knows, but we don't have to go into it. Um, but yeah, so uh, I decided to compete after I had my first daughter, 5 months to the day I stepped on stage.
Yeah.
And maybe that was, now looking back on it, could have been a little postpartum, but I dealt with it in a physical way. But that's how I've always dealt with things in my life. I just
Yeah.
channeled my energy into something physical. Was I unhealthy about it? Well, I mean, the consumption of animal protein that I had in a day probably wasn't the best. Plus,
Yeah.
I'm coming off hormones from a child, from having a baby, and
Mhm.
that takes time. And there's patients that need to be, all those things. Looking back on it, but I will say, from doing that a couple times, um, and then competing, and I think there was a time where I went to go make chicken. I was like, I'm done with the chicken. Like, I'm just done with it. And I just like threw it. I don't even know if I threw it at somebody or if I just threw it and it just hit the garbage can. But anyways, so I started to research, and I started to kind of, I found myself intrigued about, I heard about this Dr. Michael Greger. I'm like, who's this gentleman? So I look him up and I'm like, Then I bought one of his books, How Not to Die. And literally, because had so much evidence-based stats and research in it, that's the kind of thing that I gravitate to. Because I appreciate and respect people's opinions, but sometimes you need a little bit more value in numbers. And I guess that's kind of how I wrap my head around some things. But everything that he said made sense. So I tried a couple of things, and then it wasn't really the food that he was labeling, as how he approached that there was a part in the book that said, you have to listen to your body in order to understand what you're doing to it. It'll tell you everything you need to know. And I was like, okay, let's just try this out.
Yeah.
I went through and I just was very mindful of things that I knew I didn't digest well. And I just found that it was meat, and it was dairy, and it was the things that I first cut out on my diet, and I never have felt better. Now, it's not to say that that's right or wrong for people. It's just what I went through, you
Yeah.
know? But the benefits of recovery after working out, the strength that I would have, I'm running around after an 8 and a 16-month-old, right? All day
Yeah.
long. And I'm
Yeah.
able to do all these things because I was really starting to be mindful of what my body needed. So then I just started to take it even further, and I looked up books, and I bought a bunch of cooking books, and things that just, so you could just along the way. And it's a lot of trial and error, but I'll tell you, I think the best thing I could have ever done for myself is isn't well, I would say veganism, no, but major plant-based focus, yes. I'd say
Yeah.
9 to 10 in my life. Um, yeah, and I encourage all of my clients to do that, or to gradually, or even just think about incorporating more plants, not to convert. It's not my job to convert people. It's not,
Yep.
it's just my job to say, hey, this is what works. But 9 times out of 10, when we start doing these things, it's a game changer for my clients
Yeah.
and for me, because I'm
Yeah.
learning from them because of their response.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, and and that comes from your nursing background too. Obviously, the evidence-based part of it as well is that
Yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
people will take different trends and things like that, but it's being able to look at actual data and see kind of what works makes sense.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, for sure.
um, you've talked about having those people. I'm assuming that you take a lot of inspiration away from them, because if you are doing transformation work where people are considerably changing, and it may seem like physical transformation, but I'm sure there's much more than that happens along the
Yes.
way, regardless if it's intentional or not. So
Yeah.
is that true? Like, is that something that kind of drives you as you go through this?
Yeah, you know what? I think I've always been the one that's always tried to fix things. Like in the family, or if someone's hurt, I'd run to them. I've always been that person. But I will say, through doing this now 2 years in and pretty deep into it, change begins with a change in your mental outlook, your insight, emotional development, like emotionally mature, but emotionally strong enough to let all your vulnerabilities out. Most people don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Nobody wants people to see that, right? It's just one of those things. So for most people, and the reason why they're not successfully able to live a healthy lifestyle, or to live a lifestyle that they're going to be satisfied with how they look physically, how they feel physically, that kind of thing. But it's mental, and the ability to kind of be able to find those triggers and to solve them, plow through them, so that they're no longer there.
Yeah.
Your clients live this 2.0 version of their life. It's amazing, you know?
Yeah. Very cool.
And it's progress, not perfection, right? It doesn't, like, whatever progress is what it is. So
yeah. Well, and that's a great way to look at it. I mean, how do you, because this is almost a two-sided question. Well, how do you do it for yourself? But then how do you also, if you think of setting goals for yourself, you know, as you go through, do you use the same process for yourself as you do for your clients?
Yes,
you know, tell us about it. So
yeah, that's so important. And I actually wanted to put that to the test last year. Because even though I talk, and after, I think, you know, when you're a teacher, you have to still kind of come back to your student ways, whether it's to compete or do something at the level of, to make sure, you know, you're at where you should be and how you're functioning, right? Like, you practice what you preach. So I decided last year to compete after I hadn't in probably about 4 years. And it was an 8-week prep. I was my coach. People looked at me like I was crazy when I told them backstage I was plant-based. And they were like, who's your coach? And I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, hey, I'm my coach. But anyway, I'll take that as flattery. But I applied the same concepts that I do with my clients every single day for 8 weeks. I applied the same technique of my approach to nutrition. My training was the same, but I have always, I would say, I follow a routine, but I always end up going into the gym, training something a little extra. So to ever ask me, do you train consistently the same thing? Never. Yeah. I don't know why. I probably should look into that a little bit. But anyways, so I basically applied all those principles for 8 weeks. Did a little more cardio than I normally would. And I came in and I feel like I did well for myself. There's always, you know, improvement that I could have, you know, overall, or whatever the case may be. But it was, I think that whole process of going through that prep stage again taught me something valuable. I had so much more confidence and belief as to what I was doing with my clients, because what I did myself got me where I needed to be.
Yeah.
So I always I said, the process does not fail. People fail the process. So if I can believe in it that much, I will always be down to help someone else, for sure.
Now, when you go to a competition like that, how, because in some forms of sports and things like that, the mental piece of it can be a huge part of it. And now it's a little bit different with that, but I'm wondering, is it, you know, when you go into that, do you have to do anything from a mental performance perspective before you get there? Or how does that work for you? Because you are still competing beside somebody right there, and there is a whole kind of way of being able to do that. So how does that work in that field?
Well, I mean, since the very first time I competed till now, it's night and day. Well, at least the way I see it. What I remember the first time I competed, it felt, being backstage, it felt there wasn't a cohesiveness. It was kind of like people were sizing each other up. There was just a little bit of this, a little bit, didn't feel positive, you know? And I didn't like that climate. Anyone that knows me knows, you know, Jac likes a little more positive, like, hey, where's the dance floor kind of thing, not like, you know, that kind of thing. So I think over the years, and I'll be honest, I don't think it was really the people in the room. It was me. Like, I felt that way, which is strange, you know, because I'm always a very pleasant person, but I was intimidated for the wrong reasons. When I competed this year, I literally made best friends with every single person. It was so much fun. I had so many great conversations. The motivation was just hype. It was amazing. And you learn to stay in your own lane. You don't really, like, yeah, sure, if someone looks better than you, then you better hope that you come in second, because that right then and there is achievement, right?
Yeah.
So you embrace that and you just go, you know, I'm going to go out there and give my best, and I'm going to do what I need to do because I put the work in. So I went in with a totally different attitude. the whole way through this, the 8 weeks, it wasn't easy. There was times where I woke up and I was like, I would love to have a coach right now to tell me, Jac, stop. You're looking good. You're right where you need to be. Reassurance that I was on track. I wanted that affirmation, or I wanted someone to tell me that,
Yeah.
But when you're your own coach, you have to, you have to.
Are you tougher on yourself than a coach would be if you had an external coach?
If you ask my parents, they're always going to say Jac's tougher on herself. My friends would say that, but it's just.
So it would only be you that doesn't say that.
To my yeah, no, I would say probably you are. There's a process that happens with, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure anyone that has competed will relate that there's a point in your journey when you're prepping that you kind of disconnect your head with your body, right? Because you're now looking away that you've never really looked before. There's all this unfamiliar territory. You're depleted, probably calorie deficit, your water's probably not up to snuff. There's a lot of unhealthy aspects to it. So yeah, there's that part where you can disconnect and almost lose, almost like a body dysmorphia or something like that. But you have to have a good coach to remind you to stay focused and to try to be the healthiest you can during the process. I mean, obviously the sport's not that healthy, or it can be unhealthy for some. But I think awareness and that whole process, really mentally, if you're not balanced, or if you suffer from mental illness, that's probably something you want to reconsider before you do that, or make sure you have the right coach guiding you through it and after. Because it's not enough just to bring someone to that. You have to be able to help rebound or reverse diet to kind of normalize things, especially with women and hormones and that kind of thing. Because it's going from a high to a low.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard people be really authentic about that part of it, I think, because it's a lot of people, if you see it outside and understand what happens to get to that point, it can be very difficult for some people as well. So
absolutely.
It's good to know, like, to be realistic about it too, which is good for other people. So so one of the things that we do, and because you're you coach people like this all the time, is being able to, there's probably lots of people who are listening thinking, wow, that sounds like something that I really need to do. I really need to make a change in my life, maybe make some kind of physical transformation. A lot of people are sometimes very wary about how to start. And so as a coach, are there 2 or 3 things that, if people are listening right now, that they could do right away to kind of at least push themselves in that path and maybe get them started and moving ahead in some kind of transformation?
Absolutely. Well, I think with anyone having a conversation in their head, whether or not they want to change or not, that means they want to change. So when you decide that if there's something you don't like about where you're at or who you are on some level, whether it be physical or mental, I would say, what is your goal? Identify a goal as to what you want to achieve. You don't necessarily have to give yourself a timeline, but at least identify that goal. Now, once you identify it, go, okay, well, how much am I realistically willing to put in? Commit yourself. So whatever you commit yourself to, just be consistent with that. Because if you're consistent with those changes, progress will come. Now, it's up to that person how much they want to put in. That's why I'm saying, just be realistic with yourself, identify something, and be kind to yourself. Don't forget to give yourself kudos for the little things, whether it's, one more rep that day, or you deferred the chocolate almond, or, like whatever it is, you parked a little further because you wanted a little extra cardio to walk into the grocery store, whatever it is, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, I think it's just, you have to be able to know really what it is that you're wanting out of your goal. Be realistic with yourself. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I feel people go, okay, well, I'm going to go on this diet and I'm going to do it 100%. And then say they spiral and they have some Oreo cookies. Well, then all of a sudden it's like, well, I just undid my whole week. So then there's some negative feedback going on, and then they spiral and then they lose. But it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Just pick up where you left off, go back to your concepts, and be consistent again. Great. So you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's good that I think addressing that as well, because so many people start on a path, and this is that time of year because we're talking kind of mid to late January, and this is usually
Right.
the time
Yeah.
where people have done the resolutions, and this is where they feel like, oh, I've fallen off, so I'm off, instead of
Right.
now maybe is the time to kind of just stay focused and, you know, push that to the side.
Absolutely.
So plans for this year, I mean, before we go into how people can connect with you and things, do you have any kind of big goals yourself this year?
Well, I'll be honest, the auction thing was probably my number one goal.
Yeah,
So
that's
that came at a really early part of this year. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm still like dancing around the kitchen about that one.
I bet.
I'd like to, ironically, I'd like to start my own podcast.
Yeah.
So I've been doing some work with that, and the Magnum team, they're a fantastic company to work for. Like, they're amazing and
Yeah.
authentic and genuine. Everything that I just really, really enjoy. So yeah, I would like to do some more work with them.
Mhm.
And I think just kind of see where the whole ambassadorship for Oxygen is going to go.
Yeah.
I have thought about competing again, and it would look like July if I did it.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think I'm just gonna kind of feel it out and see where things are going, but I have a feeling that might happen.
Yeah, well, and that's it. You got a lot of things going on, but you know, being open to it is part of it too, right? Is
Yeah,
you don't want it
absolutely.
so locked in. So, so if people are trying to kind of, you know, get in touch with you, maybe follow some of your stuff, and maybe even connect with you from a coaching perspective, things like that, what are the best ways of doing that?
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in just exploring options or programs with JacFit, it's
Yeah.
my website is jacfit.ca.
Mhm.
There's several programs. There's the 6-week transformation challenge, which I think is probably the most popular and the most fun. I have one-to-one, I have photo shoot prep, I have competition prep, all different programs. So if you are interested, or you just kind of don't know what your goal is, but that might help kind of steer you in the right way, just take a look at that website. I'm on Instagram. My fitness page is Jac_LynFit. So I am on there as well. Facebook is connected to that. So there's another way of means. Yeah, really, I try to get back to most people right away if they message me on my website, only because I'm on it 24/7. So I'm more likely to get back to that really quickly.
Yeah.
But I encourage anyone that even if it's, you know, a direct message on Instagram, which I get quite often, I'll either shoot you my website or I'll give you some direct feedback right then and there. So
Cool. Well, what we'll do is we'll put those in the show notes as well. So, so
sure.
people, when they get that, they can go right through to that. And yeah, absolutely take a look, especially at the website. Lots of great programs on there and ways to be able to connect with you. So, if you haven't hit subscribe on the podcast, make sure you do that right now. We have great people every week, just like Jaclyn. So, you know, again, thank you so much for taking the time. I know, you know, you've got tons going on, so really appreciate you taking the time with us today.
No, my pleasure. I really appreciate having platforms like this. I think it's just, if you can take something away from it or something that motivates you, why not, right? So thank
Absolutely.
you. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. And we will talk to everybody again on Big Idea, Big Move.